What is up, everyone? This is Caleb along with Jacob, and earlier we, along with Hayden, did a speed climbing competition at the Summit Gym in Dallas. You can see the rules on the screen, and if you don't know the way to tell the three of us apart in this video, Jacob is wearing a black hat and dark red shorts with a long hair. I'm wearing red shorts and a tan hat, and Hayden's wearing green shorts and a blue mask. So we had 6 walls that we did. This is the first one, and it's just a nice, easy warm-up wall. What would you say about this wall?
It was really easy. I mean, it's super tempting to try to jump ahead way too far and get ahead of yourself, but
So Hayden started out, and he told me right after he climbed this, but that he was not ready to, and he was not prepared for what he was going to be doing right here. And so he threw himself off right at the beginning, and so he had a slower first climb, but he made it to the top.
yeah, going back to what I was saying, it's super easy to get ahead of yourself on this wall. It looks so simple. Looks like you can skip so many steps, but
And we'll see this in a second, but you did something interesting with your arms at the beginning. You had yours crossed. Why'd you do that?
thinking I had crossed my arms. I crossed it so I could pull up with my right arm and reach higher with my left arm, so that way I was able to get a quicker advantage on that, and paid off just by that little second margin. But
So second wall, a little bit trickier. This one was interesting because you had a little side-to-side action at the top. And if you don't know rock climbing wall difficulty, yellow is decently easy, green is a little bit harder than that, and then red is the next hardest. The way we timed is our timer would start the second our first hand moved to the next rock, and it stopped when we got both hands on the top, which Hayden does right there. Normally the top is a rock, but on some of them it's the very top of the wall. I had a little bit more momentum going for me this time than I did on the last one.
foot placement on this was key, especially on the first jump right there, where I had to pull myself up, get my feet immediately planted so I could go right to the top at the end.
So we see some pretty clear separation in the total times after 2 walls, but there's still 4 to go, and it gets really interesting once we get to the 4th wall, and you'll see in just a second. This one is right about the same skill level and style as the wall we just did. What are the notable differences to you? To me, this one has a very clear middle point with that big one you can kind of see in the middle of the screen right now, and then there's 3 big rocks, the bottom, middle, and top.
It's completely different gripping on that. A lot of those are a lot smaller ones you have to switch to, but on these bigger ones you have to get, if you really want to get it fast, you have to get both of those arms planted on the bigger rocks, pull yourself up, and just move right back up after that.
So what we'll see in a second, for me, my biggest strength is arm placement, and my far and away biggest weakness I have is leg placement, and you'll see that on the next one and on the end, but we'll get to that in a second.
I feel like I had an advantage going into this. Lack of body weight, very, very, very helpful.
This is my personal favorite wall in the whole gym, just because I like the ending. You'll see in a second. I also like the grips that kind of look like pipes sticking out. It's easier for the way I place my hands on rocks, and then it ends on that cross beam at the top, so it's a little different there.
One tricky thing about this wall is you have the ones, like you said, that look like pipes, but then you have the one, you can see it on his left hand just before there.
And that was our first fall. So falls, all that means is you can try again, and it's just 3 seconds added on to the time you put on your first successful climb.
Going back to what I was saying, the pipes, those rocks are primarily on this one, but then you also got they're called crimps, the little small rocks, use a lot more finger strength, and having to adapt between the pipe rocks and the crimps is really fun on this one, really challenging. And I kind of slipped with my footing a little bit on there, but thankfully it wasn't too catastrophic.
And this is Hayden's second attempt at this one.
Struggled just a little bit on this one. It was a red, so it was the hardest difficulty out of the 5. Definitely not the hardest wall, as you'll see later, but
So 4 out of 6 done, and it's a 12-second gap for first place, and then only 14 seconds behind me is Hayden. This wall gives a little bit of prep for the last wall because the starting grips are very similar on these two walls. And this one is an easy kind of break between the two hardest, which are 4 and 6. This is another one where the very top is actually the top of the wall and not necessarily a hold.
No, you'll see the one he grabs with his left hand right there, and then the left hand there. They look really nice, but they're pretty flat on the top with tiny little grooves, so that kind of threw me off the slightest bit when I was going on this, but not too bad.
There's the first time you see it where my feet have a tendency to slip out if I'm not focusing on my foot placement, and that throws me off a bit because I don't have the strongest arms. And this might have been the fastest climb of the day, this one take right here. So 39.56 and 109 going into the last wall. And this one's tricky. It's on the wall of the gym called Big Tex, and it angles out the most, which makes the climbs even that much harder. You can't really see it from this angle, but you're probably coming out about a 45-degree angle, and then you have this bubble that brings you out even farther.
Not to mention the lack of good footholds on this. You're having to jam your foot inside these rocks that are... You can see the ones he's about to come onto now. They look like handles. They're a lot harder to place your feet on, but you really have to jam your foot inside the little gap if you really want to stay planted.
This one, because it's like so far out, you have to have a lot of arm strength, and you have to swing your arms really far to get to the next hold because you're going out as much as you are up.
And at this point, he was saying he was getting really tired, which was kind of a bummer, but, I mean...
He said he was going to give it one last try. He made more quick progress this time around. But that circle that comes out like that makes this wall so much trickier, even though it was hard to begin with.
And you can kind of see it with his feet. He's having a little bit of trouble right there. As you can see, it kind of slipped. That was the final straw for him. Really getting it planted in there is key on this one.
He retired and decided not to finish this last wall. This one took a lot of thinking for me because I'm not used to sticking my feet into the handles like that. And you see right there I lose my footing, but now I know next time I go up, my plan is to get my foot in. You see it right there. Because I know it's tricky, but as long as I can keep my feet in, then I'll be able to make it to the top.
One thing I see a lot of people do is they won't necessarily reach in or stick their foot in the front of it. They'll go around the back and kind of hook their foot around it, which is also an interesting strategy. I'll try it sometimes, but it's just jamming it in there is a lot easier and it's a lot more secure.
This was easily the hardest wall out of anything I had done up to that point that I had a chance of completing. I've tried harder, but like the hard ones I don't really have the skill yet for. And at this point, my arms were burning, and I knew like I was not going to have much more time, so I needed to make it to the top like right then, and I did. It was about 47 seconds, I believe, and so you really have like a minute and a half if you want to take the first time, but you go full send, want to get it done fast.
As you can see, the lack of body weight really helps out. I'm able to hang on those handles a lot easier, pull myself up, and grab the rocks at the top, use my length to my advantage.
So we can look at the final scores right here, that victorious jump. Hayden did not finish. Jacob beat me by 30 seconds alone on that wall and wins by about 47 seconds, which was the time that I put on that wall. So hopefully we'll have more of these competitions again in the future.